Hi there, this is Irina Barnett, and I love having conversations about life's defining moments and understanding human experiences. Moments That Define Us podcast is dedicated to healing the world one story, one defining moment at a time. So let's get into another conversation.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Moments That Define Us. My name is Irina Barnett. We are in a month of March. In March we celebrate women. We just celebrated International Women's Day, and just this whole month is all about women. But if I have to say, we women should be celebrated every day because we are mothers, we are wives, we are daughters, we are neighbors, we are community members, we are creators, and I am so extremely lucky and grateful for all the women I have in my life, for all the women I keep meeting, even throughout this podcast. Today on the podcast, I have another wonderful, badass woman who is a business owner, who is a friend, who is a community member. And I am really grateful that she found the time in her busy life to come in and talk about some of her defining moments and what makes her who she is today. Ms. Otisa Eads, welcome to Moments That Define Us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited you're here. We've met almost 2 years ago, and we met, like, I think we met in person once,
Yes.
but we've been chatting
Yes.
and just following each other and supporting each other. So I'm happy you are here.
Yes.
I have to tell people that you have a business called Otisa Eats LLC. So you are the founder and owner of that business. And we're going to talk a little bit about your business a little bit down in the in the episode, but I wanted to start with the beginning because I'm very curious, when I talk to different people, what makes them who they are right now, sitting in the moment with me. And that goes, our childhood, different experiences we had in life. So you grew up in Westport, Kentucky. And tell me if this is right. The population is 253 people.
Absolutely, very small.
Like teeny tiny.
Yes.
So, talk to me about growing up in a small town in the South.
Yeah.
When you go out of your house, do you see people that look like you? Do you what do you see when you leave your house?
Grew up in rural Kentucky, so I saw a lot of animals. I saw a lot of land. I saw trees. My parents wanted to build their home at the time. And so it's beautiful there. It's gorgeous. But no, I didn't see people that looked like me. Our family stood out in the community. But it was interesting because they embraced us. But at the same time, as a kid, you can feel lonely because you see that you are different than everyone else. And the older I got, the more those differences became, they really started to stand out a lot more the older I got. But when I was younger, I don't think I noticed it as much. But I was just so excited to run around and, walk in the creek and see different animals and horses and chickens and all kinds of things roaming around. I just enjoyed that kind of freedom that I don't think many kids get to have in suburban life or city life. However, there was loneliness at the same time.
This is something that you and I have in common. I grew up in Ukraine, and I also grew up on a it's not even a town, it's a little village, right? And everybody have their land. We grew almost everything. We had pigs. When I was very little, we had a cow and all of that. So I do agree with you that now I appreciate growing up in the countryside so much, just because the kids nowadays, and again, because it's just how world moves, but more on the devices and
Yes.
more inside, right? There is, like, I can say the same about me. I can't let my kids go to the park by themselves. Even we have the playground like right by a house. It's because it's different. But when we were growing up, and I think it doesn't matter, US, Ukraine, whatever, like, we would just go out, play with our friends.
Yes.
Nobody had cell phones.
Nope.
Nobody had social media, and we were fine.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure we we all
Well,
have some traumas. Listen, we can talk about
yes.
that, but in a sense of just the joy of childhood,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Just being in the country, running, seeing like the same, like seeing horses, seeing
Yeah.
cows, just so much freedom.
I enjoyed it, and I spent time a lot with horses. My parents had 20 acres, but they had someone that had land next to us that had nothing but horses.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time hanging out. Those are my friends, you know. I'd hang
Yeah.
out with them, and then I learned how to ride horses, and I started taking that a little bit more seriously in grade school. But it was wonderful to be able to kind of just be free, and just I had my rules of coming home at a certain time, and I had some friends that were growing up too. Some were homeschooled, some were not. The community was really beautiful as well. Everyone knew everyone. You know,
Yeah.
you waved when folks drive by. If you go to the local church or local events that are happening in the community, they know you, they see you if you go to school with their kids. So if you mess up or do something wrong, it's going to get back to your parents. So
Yeah.
there wasn't this worry of where are you at every minute of the day. And I think that I'm grateful that I got to experience that. I'm grateful that I had moments of just sitting outside and looking at the stars while my parents are cooking dinner or having their dinner. You know, I'm grateful for it now, but at the time I didn't see that way because, it was challenging being around kids that had the coolest computers and had all these different things when they were younger, or just being around more people at a time when a kid like myself was kind of a little secluded for a while, and so getting used to being around a bunch of kids at the same time was a little challenging. But now I look back and I'm like, wow, you got to hang out and be in nature a whole lot more than I get to do as much as I would like to do as an adult.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of gratitude for that experience.
I know, same. And because of course, like when you're a kid, you don't see the experiences you're having as this. Well, some we do, but especially I can relate to like seeing kids like started to have something
Yes.
like electronic,
Yes.
and you didn't, and you feel like, well, why don't I have this, right? But I don't know. It was awesome. It was awesome
Yes.
growing up in the like 90s and
Yes.
born in the I saw this funny video on Instagram where I think it was the guy said born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, party in 2000, no social media, did a bunch of stupid stuff and nobody knows about it.
Yes.
You mentioned that when you were growing up, you felt lonely.
Yeah.
How did you as a kid kind of dealt with that loneliness?
Yeah, well, I had parents who were very strict religious, and my dad was very musical. So I grew up in a very musical family. My mom was also, she would sing in the choir. So I had music. I had a microphone. My dad had a studio that he would jam out in. So I would go in there and sing or play the piano, and then I took to drums. And so it's like I got to create like a little musical world for myself. And then as I got older, musical theater and different singing lessons. And so music was music and reading were the two things I got to kind of have my own world and explore and have fun and because I was shy. I know it's probably not obvious now, but I was very shy as a kid. So music and dancing and just creating my own little world was just my way of expressing myself, and to be in my place. So I didn't feel as lonely when I would express myself in those ways. It was only moments of loneliness when being the only black girl on the street, with a bunch of white kids, mostly dudes. That's when I felt like I knew that I didn't fit in. I knew that I didn't belong. They tried because their parents made them, take her with you, like go do things. But I knew I didn't fit in, I didn't belong. But I knew that when I was in my little musical world that I did belong. So that's kind of how I dealt with it as a kid.
What's so interesting, I hear a lot of creative people that when you look at them now, like they're not shy at all, right? But specifically this lady that has a big podcast, she was talking about how she was very shy growing up. She was bullied at school, but she said when I was creating, like her and her couple of friends were creating like these videos, right?
Yes.
And acting,
Yes.
like acting different, whatever, different movies, creating their music videos. She
Yeah.
said, I felt like I could be myself
Yes.
completely and I could express myself and all of that. So it's very common theme, right, for
Yes.
very creative people.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to
I
college?
went to Murray State University, very, I would say a small college town.
Yeah.
When I go to Fort Collins here to CSU, it kind of reminds me of Murray State University. Yeah, I loved college. I told folks that it was like Harry Potter land for me, Hogwarts, but school. I love learning, so it was a cool place for me to enjoy that academic side, but also be around more diversity, because it was wonderful seeing folks from all over the United States, and folks international students. I spent a lot of time in that part of the campus, because it was great to just see people who were different and learning from them. And I liked that it was a smaller university, so I could navigate it better. I don't think I would have done well at a huge university; would have probably gotten lost. But yeah, I enjoyed my time. I liked that you could have a close relationship with your professors, where they're not just teaching you something; they're also advising you on things. I always connected with like older students or older figures, and so I felt like in university I could have this mentorship relationship
Yeah.
in a different way as a college kid, and they could give you advice about life, not just what's happening in the classroom.
Something you said, how you went to college and you enjoy seeing more like different people,
Yeah.
more diversity. My husband, he grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he went to school at Oklahoma State University, OSU. And that's what he said. He's like, I love hanging out in like the international campus with
Yes.
all these people from all different parts of the world. Because, like, I just feel like in a very basic level, we have so much more in common that all this noise makes us think, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, you grew up in like rural Kentucky and I grew up in Ukraine, and we
Yes.
found how our childhood was very
Very,
similar.
very similar.
So what does it matter? There's a lot of talk now, especially in this time we live now, about diversity
Yes.
and being different. And I am curious your take on, like, I know to me why diversity is important, and not just important, it's necessary.
Yes.
Like, we need to have different people at the table to make decision that involves everybody, affects
Yes.
everybody, right? So if
Absolutely.
we have only one kind of people, you're not thinking about anybody else but those people who sit at the table. And if we have primarily, white middle-aged men,
Right.
they cannot think about even women of color, men of color. But I want to hear your take on diversity and being different and why it is important.
Great question. And I feel like I think about it often. I think in college it was really important to me because I was in a community where I was the only, and
Yeah.
and that was challenging in different ways. And so when I got to college and I got to meet folks from all over, it was great to see different folks' background, their childhood, or what they're into, what movies they like, what music they're interested in. And then we talk about cultural differences with folks from different parts of the world. It's just great to hear what life is like in a different place. And by understanding that there's folks that have different perspectives, that have different ways of life, you get to see the beauty. I think Maya Angelou talks about the tapestry, like people wear tapestry, right, with different patterns. And so that's important in life. You don't want to walk around life and thinking that everyone's just like you,
Yeah.
and so I feel like by seeing the beauty of difference, you get to see different ways of going about a situation, or how to handle people, because people are different. I always say people are people in nowadays, but you have more compassion for differences, or compassion for how someone's approaching you. And if you are never exposed to difference, well, your tolerance for those things are going to be a little bit different than someone like myself. So for me, it's just how can I learn more about others so I can shape how I show up in the world. That's why I think diversity and difference is so important to be embraced.
Okay. Next question around college. So I read that when you finish college, and you have a degree in organizational communication, which I want to know what that is. But you said I was struggling to figure out what I do next. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of especially young people, because well, anybody I guess who is in college, but primarily young people, right? Like because you go to college,
Yep.
and you have structure.
Yes.
Like let's say it's 4 years mostly, right? You have structure, you have classes, you have summer off, or you do like internship, whatever. You have the structure, you know when you need to show up and stuff. And then when you're done with college, if you don't have a job laid out for you right away,
Yeah.
a lot of people struggle. Well, what do I do next? I'm supposed to be an adult, I'm supposed to go and like figure out all of this stuff. So I'm curious about your experience in like when you finish college, and you tell me if you have a job that you didn't want, or you didn't have and you were just like trying to figure out, okay, where I go next.
So I have to give you a little context. So I was about my junior year. I studied abroad in Chile for 6 months.
Nice.
It was a wonderful experience. I loved it. And when I got back to the States, I was like, oh no, like I have to hustle to cram so much in so I can graduate on time. Well, I ended up graduating a semester early.
Okay.
Because I thought that I was behind. So then it was like, now what do I do? Because
Yeah.
I thought I was late. And so, which I think was honestly a blessing in disguise, because I don't think many students allow themselves time and space between college and starting your adult life. I think we rush that process a little too quickly for most that follow that trajectory. But so I was like, okay, well, I got a part-time role at a radio station, and I ended up working there for the next 6 months, and enjoyed it so much and learned so much that I had to leave because I realized I would stay in this town and work at the radio station forever if I let myself. So I had this dream of wanting to be an event planner, and I wanted to do concerts, and I wanted to do big events, and I love logistics. So I thought that would be a fun job, but before I could do that, I needed to go to music festivals and learn and volunteer and see what that life could be like. And so a boyfriend at the time and I decided to set out and pick a few festivals to volunteer at and have a road trip from Kentucky to eventually Colorado. But the plan was to go to California, but our truck broke down in Golden.
Oh,
Yeah.
in Colorado.
In Colorado. So it changed our plans, but I got to see a whole lot. I got to experience a lot of cool things. Car camping can be fun and scary. And I don't regret any of it because I got to learn more about myself. I got to, camp and be around nature, and it was a beautiful experience. But then we had to quickly figure out adult life a little faster than we were expecting to. And then get the job and find the place, and that was very stressful. But I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we tried something new, even though folks were like, "Why do you want to do this? This is ridiculous. You have a degree, go in a career." And I was like, I got time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I did that after I graduated.
So you set out to go to California.
Mm-hmm.
Truck breaks down in Golden.
Yes.
How long are you staying in Golden at that time?
Not long. I would say like maybe a day, and then we quickly went to Aurora,
Okay.
so we could find an extended stay hotel to stay as long as we could, so we can find jobs, so we can find a place to stay, and all those different things. But we were actually on our way to the Wine Festival and Bluegrass Festival in Telluride before going to San Francisco for the Comic-Con. That was the
Okay.
plan. And then to figure out where we wanted to live. Do we want to live in California, Washington State, or Colorado? But the universe brought us to Colorado instead. We could have went back home, like we could have,
Yeah.
but we didn't want to. We were like, no, let's figure out how to make it work here. Let's not go back and tuck our tails, and let's struggle a little bit to be on our own, and let's figure out how to handle life here.
Okay. And how, when you first came to Colorado, you obviously coming from different state, and also, from growing up in a small town, going to college in a small town. What did you think about Colorado?
When I first got to Colorado, it's beautiful here. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. And when you're driving across the country, you see how beautiful our country is. But Colorado is very, very special. And not realizing the mountains, like the landscape. So I was just more mesmerized by how beautiful it was here. And then people were so kind. I was not expecting the kindness when I first moved here. Being from a small town, it was drilled into me that you're never going to find people to be as kind in other places. And Colorado proved us wrong. People were very friendly. If you asked directions, they'd tell you where to go, or it was just more welcoming at that time than we ever expected. And that's when I thought, okay, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens.
Okay, so what happened?
Oh, well, it was not glamorous at all. We had to, figure out what jobs we wanted to get, not jobs you want. So I
Yeah.
worked at a call center. I can't remember what my partner, I think he ended up working at the Extended Stay America as a janitor. And so he did that. I worked at the call center, and we just had to figure out how to get on our feet and live paycheck to paycheck until we could, okay, what's next? I think we were renting a room out of someone's home nearby until we could get an apartment. And then I ended up working in catering, and then I ended up being a HR manager there. And he ended up following his dreams and working at a dispensary, being a bud tender, and he wanted to work his way up at the time. And so we just started laying the foundation for our lives. And unfortunately, we didn't stay together. We parted ways for different reasons, but it was hard. Like, it was really tough, but I'm glad that we did that because it helped me understand that things that you want do not always come easily, and that hard work, it just taught me a different way of looking at hard work. I had my first job in 8th grade, so I'm not shy. I'm not scared to get my hands dirty. However, I think that, I have this degree and yet I'm working at a call center, or I have this degree and I'm working as a front desk, person, at a receptionist at a catering company. But it taught me, okay, well, if I show how much I care about my role, if I figure out how to improve my role, then I started to move up. And I think that taught me, like, that's sometimes how you navigate your career. I think that in college they make it sound like you have this paper and they're going to put you
Yeah.
in that high salary role. No, 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 no. That is not how the world works. And then being a black woman, it's more, I have to prove that I know what I know in my degree. And yeah, I need to be in a leadership role. But that took a long time for me to navigate that role. But they don't tell you any of this in college. They just think you pass a test, you get your degree, they're gonna hire you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important what you said, that sometimes we have a plan, but universe has a different plan for us, right?
Yes.
And yes, getting something, almost all of us, and I say almost because some people come from either that's a privilege of having all the resources, or other privileges, right, that maybe you don't have to put as much work. But most of the people, right, you have to work hard for
Yes.
for what you want. But it's also what you said, it's so important that once you get that degree in college, here's your paper, go and find the job.
Right.
But sometimes it's not like that.
It's rarely like it's rarely like that.
It's rarely like that. So that's important, also for young people to remember that if right after college you didn't get your dream job, that doesn't mean that's it. Like, especially if
Yeah.
you're like in your early 20s, go get different jobs.
Yes.
Go experience different things, because then sometimes we think that if you haven't tried something, but you like kind of in your mind, I want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get that, you're like, I actually don't like doing this.
Yes.
Because sometimes it sounds fun or whatever, glamorous or
Yes.
easy when you see somebody else doing, but you
Yes.
don't know what it took them to do that. But also once you get to that role or whatever that may be, you're like, this is actually not for me. So I always say, like, I don't have too many young friends like that, but I have a few, and I say, just try different things, because
Yes.
you just never know. And college, it's never like, oh, I wasted my money. No, you read books, you met
Yes.
friends, you got experiences. That's never a waste of money, because you got, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got something.
Well, and I think everyone's path is different. I think when it comes to college, I think that there is this pressure that everyone needs to go through that same path. I don't agree. I think depending on the person or the kid, it depends on what's going to work. Maybe they go in the workforce first,
Yeah.
and then they try different jobs and go, I really want to learn more about this. And then they go, okay, I'll take vocational classes. I think for me, it's all about just exploring as much as folks can. And I think that college aged era, I think it's just time for self exploration. And I think at any age you can explore what you want. My mother was someone who went to school all the time. Like she just liked learning.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. You know, whatever you're wanting to explore. And I think that everyone should work in hospitality. Everyone should work in retail.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, and learn a skill, whether it's culinary or anything. Just learn as much as you can because you never know how that's going to serve you in life. That's kind of how I look at it.
Organizational communication. But you end up like trying different jobs, and then
Yes.
you end up in catering.
Yes.
How long did you work in catering before realizing that you have a vision or a gift or something for your own business?
I like how you phrase your questions. They're very intentional. I feel like for me, I was always someone that had something else going on. So in college, I tutored on the side, and I was an RA, and
Hustler.
yeah, I always had just different projects and things going on. Didn't know that that was a skill set. It's just my personality. I really wanted to be an event planner. My goal was to be this like amazing event planner, and I thought I wanted to do weddings and all these things. And then I started doing like serving shifts for a catering company just to see if this event planning thing could actually happen since I didn't follow my music festival dream, right? So I get this job, and I'll never forget meeting the owner of the catering company, telling her my music festival dream, and her looking at me like, what? Like, that is silly. And so I ended up getting the front desk receptionist job.
Okay.
But I was like, well, I'm a little closer to the event planning. But then I got to see how events are from the very beginning, middle, and end of an event. I got to see chefs working really hard to get food out the door. I got to see everything behind the scenes. And then I quickly realized that I don't know if I want to do events the way they do events. So I got to be on events. I got to do a lot of different things because of that job. And then all of a sudden, they needed an HR manager. And they ended up looking to me. I was already doing like phone interviews and all kinds of stuff anyway, so it worked. And then I started enjoying a work environment and a workplace, and how can I create a place where folks can thrive. Yeah. I was met with a lot of challenge from leadership at the time of what I wanted to do. And I won't get into all of that drama, but I saw and learned that I cared more about how staff navigate this work environment. We spend a lot of our time at work.
Yeah, we do.
And I think that we forget that we don't have to make that we don't have to make that a negative experience. Mm-hmm. We don't have to make folks struggle. I think that a work environment can be a beautiful place.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that is not the case for many folks. If you're lucky, you get to enjoy your work environment, enjoy your colleagues, but that is not the normal experience. And so for me, it was figuring out how can I do that? How can I help people get jobs that are aligned with their skill set? How can I help teams form where they can all work together? But then I learned the other sides of the hospitality industry, personality quirks, the stress of time, clients that are upset just because they're upset. They have something they want to pick apart. So I got to just see like this is a lot. And I loved my job, but I also realized that HR is a thankless job. Uh-huh. No one gives you a pat on the back. No. You're either the villain or their best friend, and that can change in a day. Yeah. So I went in thinking that event planning was going to be the thing, and then I ended up being an HR manager. So yeah, I am grateful for the experience, and I learned more about what I could contribute to the work environment. And so that's kind of what ended up happening. I'm not sure if I answered your question perfectly, but that's kind of what ended up happening for my job. And I love food. So it was great to be around food and see the artistry that comes in the whole event experience. I think I have way more admiration for those that are in hospitality and do incredible work.
Hospitality is a special kind of work, and I agree with you that everybody should work either hotel or restaurant, but it teaches you like communication skill, it teaches you how to deal with difficult people. It teaches you a lot of things.
So I think you asked me what organizational communication is, and I did not answer you. What it is, and I'm a little rusty on my learning here, but what I tell folks, it's about how an organization functions when it comes to, you can look at it from communication within the organization and the processes and systems that make it run, but also the different concepts that we run into, or different theories, like one thing is expectation violation theory. You think, for me, I'll use myself. In college, I was a great student in the classroom, so answering questions, submitting my homework, doing great presentations, but you put a test in front of me and I probably don't do well. But the expectation is that I would excel because I do so well in class. That's an expectation violation theory. Or how we handle conflict management styles. That all takes place in a work environment.
Yeah.
Or looking at, I was just talking with my friend over a drink last night about the stages of team development. I know, isn't that fun to talk about over drinks? So we talk about that. These are these things that people experience in a work environment, or experience working in a business or organization or company, but they're not aware that these are the things that are taking place. And so that's what organizational communication stood out to me, is because I thought that was just fascinating, and how that relates to anyone, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an employee, or whoever. All the different things that we do, how we talk to one another, how we show up in a space, is important. So I wanted to learn as much as I could about the importance of communication and how it shows up.
Communication is the key to everything.
Yes.
It seems so simple, but it is. If you have good communication at work, in your relationship, even with your friends, with anybody, like, it just, everything is better when there is like clear communication. But you said something that I think a lot of people who start their own business have. So you said when you were working with the catering, and when you were in the HR, you met with a lot of, I don't know if you use pushback, but differences from
Yes.
the leadership.
Yes.
How you saw the
Yes.
path forward and how they saw
Absolutely.
path forward. And I am assuming, but I'm going to let you answer, but I'm assuming that that's where, like, I can do this. I can do this my own way, how I see it. I wonder how you went from working for somebody to then working for yourself.
You bring up something really interesting. I think I had a different mindset. My mindset was more like, wow, if I can help shape a culture at one organization, or at least attempt to, if I could make changes to their onboarding system, if I could figure out how to make these processes internally more simple and easier, then I can do that anywhere. So my brain was like, well, I don't have to work here and do this. I could do this same work for other people.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really thinking about, my way. It was more of like, how can I use this skill set to support different businesses and organizations? And 2020 happened, and I was working for different, I had different clients and working at the catering company part-time. So I was able to see what that was like, to have my foot in the door of being a contractor, freelancer, or working for myself. And then 2020 kind of forced me to put more of my time and energy in making this a legit business.
Yeah.
And so, and it took mentorship. I had amazing women who I would be asking questions. There's a dear friend, shout out to Mickey, who I just asked her question after question, because she worked in HR too. And she was like, yeah, I work with different clients and I love it. And I get to make my schedule, and I get to bring myself, and I'm seen as an expert. And I was like, whoa, this sounds amazing. And that kind of gave me that itch of like, okay, I could do this. And then 2020 was like, well, you kind of have to do this. And I still ended up working for that catering company until I officially resigned in September of 2020. And then I was off to the races, working with different clients and exploring training and development, and just getting to do more of what I wanted to do at the time. That was the cool thing for me. So it was like, what can I do more of that I enjoyed? And so training and development and supporting people with creating systems was what was enjoyable to me at the time.
If I may say, it seems like that 2020 was one of those defining moments in history for all of us. But it seems like it was a defining moment for you when you finally decided, go into this like you wasn't just like dipping your, what did they say,
Toes.
dipping your toes in the water. You're like, I am diving all in. And you have to do that. You have
Yeah.
to do that at some point, you know. And I think it's smart what you did, and I think a lot of business owner can relate to, where like, okay, if you are not making enough money, like if you have a job, stay at the job, maybe go, you know, part-time if it's
Yes.
possible, whatever. But like you can, unless you have some money on the side, right, like work and then do, you know, I was listening to Ava DuVernay, you know, the very famous director, and I say even her because now she is like, you know, making all this millions upon millions dollars movie. But she was saying when she was starting stuff on her own, she was still working. She was still
Yes.
working. So it doesn't matter. Like we all start somewhere.
Yes.
Again, if you don't have the privilege of having some money from your family to where you can lean
Mm-hmm.
on, or whatever that may be, like everybody,
Yeah.
almost everybody, you know, have to go through the struggle, have to like, you know, work and put love into the business. But I think, and I wonder, I'm sure you agree with me, but like if you doing what you meant to do,
Yeah.
and if you love it, you will, you are okay of losing sleep at the beginning because you know it's necessary. You are okay of missing some parties because you know it's necessary. Like if you love what you do, you are gonna work for it.
Yes. Yes, I do agree. I think that I always tell folks follow what brings you joy, follow what lights you up, because you won't be stirred wrong. And there's a other side to that. So I love what I get to do. And sometimes I have weeks where I'm doing a whole lot more working than I am playing. There's or there's times where I have busy seasons where I'm not able to catch up with all my friends as much as I want to. And luckily, most of my friends are business owners, so there's no need to like
They
over
understand.
explain everything. Um, and now in this stage of, you know, it's 8 years of working for myself and being a business owner, it's looking at life differently. So how do I want to do life? And how can I, yes, I have to work. Yes, sometimes I have to grind. Yes, sometimes I have to do more than I would like to, but what life am I creating? And sometimes the life that I'm creating might require a little bit more here.
Yeah.
But I can still make space for play, for joy, for time with my loved ones. And that to me is so important because that's why I started the business. I wanted more spaciousness to live my life. I feel like I loved jobs that I've had, but I ended up giving a lot to them
Mm-hmm.
and too much to them, and you don't get any. There's no return on investment for that.
True.
But when working for myself, there is. And so that's kind of how I look at it. And I tell folks too, those that have their 9 to 5 or have their job, beautiful. But what's your life? What kind of life are you wanting to create for yourself? And what are the passions that you have? And how can you pursue those passions? Because you're not what you do. It's about who you are and who you're becoming. So that's kind of how I've looked at it. And I'm grateful that I get to be able to be in that world. But trust me, there's days where I'm like, why am I doing this again? Oh, that's right. That's why I'm doing it. So I can create the life that I want. That's why I work hard.
You know, I think it's what you said. You know what you do. I think it's especially in United States, a lot of people associate their job with who they are. And I am glad that it's shifting a little bit, right, to where like people talking about what kind of life I want to create, you know, joy.
Yes.
We can experience joy, maybe spending more time with a family than, you know, having the corner office and having all this money and never seeing your family, you know. So I'm glad the conversation is shifting. And speaking of shifting conversation, I do want to shift our conversation to talking about womanhood and
Yes.
sisterhood, because again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are honoring and celebrating us, you know,
Yes.
what we've done for society, and we've done so fucking much and
Yes.
get such little appreciation. When you look throughout history,
Mm.
what are some women that have inspired you by what they've done, what they, how they changed maybe the world, or maybe what they wrote? I don't know, just I wanted to hear like who inspires you in history.
I feel like I could come at this so many different ways because I love history. So I do enjoy learning, but at the same time, I think there's just people in everyday life that inspires me. I tell my friends I try to spend time with folks that are older than me, women that are in their 60s and their 70s. They inspire me the most because they have lived their life and they share with you things that you can apply right now.
Yeah.
Or they tell you the dreams that they didn't pursue because of whatever circumstances. So to remind you to pursue your dreams. So I would say a lot of my inspiration now is from everyday women that I can listen and learn from, that can teach me things, that can be a confidant. That to me is what's beautiful, or can tell you what time was like in 1966, or can tell you what times were like in 1958, and how things are either shifting back, or where there's some differences as us as women, and why we need to really protect our rights and be advocates for ourselves and others. That is to me very beautiful. On the flip side, I'm reading different books by Bell Hooks. I'm reading All About Love.
I just read that book. I had an episode on her. Oh my gosh.
Isn't she incredible?
Oh my gosh, yes. And speaking of love, like she writes so beautifully about love and so differently than you would expect.
Yes. And I'm taking my time with this book because there's so much in it, and I don't know if you felt this when you read it, how it's so applicable to today.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
It's and I'm also I just finished a Maya Angelou book, and I'm gonna get the title wrong because it's long, but it's basically different essays and poems. I think it's what I wouldn't take for my journey now. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's like Maya talking to me and sharing her wisdom with me. That's what it felt like as I read the book, and just sharing her different wisdom, the things that she's learned as a mother, as a as a woman navigating her career, and different disappointments or things that she experienced. And I think that has been super inspiring to me right now, because I feel like, I don't know if you feel like this when you're in your 30s, but there's this pressure for how your life is supposed to look like, or this pressure of what you're supposed to be achieving. And I don't feel like sometimes I'm doing that. I feel like I'm following my own path and doing my own thing, and it's beautiful to listen to these two women who, one is talking about how important love is and how you can show up, and then this other woman is telling me, like, it's okay to follow the beat of your own drum. It's okay to wear something bright and purple because that brings you joy, or it's okay to notice where you have mistakes and how to learn from them. It's okay to mess up. And I think that that's what's inspiring to me from these two women especially. But like I said, women that are older, even if they're just a few years, can give me wisdom, and that's inspiring.
May I give you some wisdom?
Please.
So I'm going to be 42 this year. And so, yes, in your 30s, because in your 20s, you go to college, or you're in college, you're partying, you're doing all of this, dating different people, right? And then when you come in your 30s, you feel like you should have your shit together type of speak, right? Like you should have the job you want. You should either date your future husband or wife. You should be thinking about kids, all of that. Because that's the pressure that's like the society puts on us, right? So yeah, I totally felt that. And then when you enter your 40, you like, you don't give a fuck about shit.
Yes.
And it's not from the like arrogance, I don't care, you know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
And let me tell you, either that's your 30s or your 40s or whatever, you are exactly where you're meant to be.
Yes.
And I always say, unless you're just laying on the couch and thinking that somehow magic will happen, then no. If you're going and doing stuff, you are doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. So we have to kind of go away from that, especially now with social media, with people posting, their trips, their wedding, their engagement,
Yes.
all of that. And if you're not there yet, then you think that somehow you are behind. No, if they're getting married, great for them. My time is a different time, right?
Yes.
And maybe it look different for me than it looks for them. But I just think that we compare ourselves way too much, and we think that everybody's running the same race,
Right.
and we are not. We are not. And I think, again, I just want to repeat that if you are doing things, you are exactly where you're meant to be.
Yes.
And the time is now to do the things. And so don't, and when it comes to comparison, I do that too sometimes, right? Maybe like, because I am a mother, I have two kids, and sometimes, you're looking like, oh, should my kids be doing this? Should they be involved in all of this different things? And I'm like, my family, my life, we have our schedule, and you kind of have to pull yourself out of that because it's
Yes.
very easy to go in the rabbit hole and saying, oh my gosh, they're eating all whatever, and my kids are not, and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So, yeah, you exactly where you meant to be.
Thank you for that wisdom. I appreciate you for sharing that.
I want to also talk to you about women friendships.
Yes.
I was listening to Jane Fonda.
Okay.
She was talking about how important female friendships are to her.
Yes.
And she said something so beautiful. And I started thinking about my friendships and how I show up in my friendship. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's so right. I mean, Jane Fonda is brilliant. She was talking about how when women talk, we sit across from each other. When men talk, they sit next to each other.
Yes.
And you know what? I was writing something today and I actually I looked to my side and I was like, I can never talk to my friend just like this, right? I need to see her.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your women friendship and how important they are to you and in your life.
Oh, they're my lifeline. I feel like I am grateful and blessed that at 34, I have a beautiful group of women that I can call, ask questions, send them voice notes, go on outings, trips. I feel very blessed and lucky that I have this because it wasn't always this easy having friendships with women, especially in your 20s.
Yeah.
That's an interesting time, right? But now I'm so grateful that I have like a sisterhood of women that I can go to and talk about life, or if I'm having a rough time, they can be there and hold space for me. I think it's a very beautiful relationship and practicing reciprocity. It's what some friends and I were talking about this week. And I can be my complete self. I can be quirky and playful and silly, and we can have serious and deep conversations. And I think it's something that I'm so grateful that I have in my life, especially right now and with everything going on in the world, but also just in my life. There's been a lot of different experiences I've had recently that it's been wonderful to lean on someone that understands, that has been through this, or just willing to witness my pain or witness my grief or whatever I'm dealing with. And that to me is so important. It helps me keep going. It helps me sustain. And I'm just, like I said, I feel very grateful and blessed that I have a beautiful community of women that I can lean on.
When you are starting like new friendship, what is important to you in a friendship? What is like almost like non-negotiable for you in a friendship?
Non-negotiable. Wow. I never would have thought about that. Non-negotiable. I don't like drama llama. That's what I say. I don't like drama llama. So I don't like drama. I don't like that. And a non-negotiable is fun. We have to have as much fun as we can. And I tell them, like, sometimes I'll say, okay, I'm the fun today, or I'm the fun committee, and I'll plan the fun things, because I don't know if you feel like this in friendship. Sometimes it's a lot of like uplifting each other, which is important, but there's not a lot of space to just play and be silly and make up stories or whatever, tell funny stories. And so I try my best to especially if there's a lot of serious heaviness going on, how can we mix that up a little bit? How can I be the fun committee this month, and then you're the fun committee next month, so that way we can foster more joy, because that's important, and making time for that is harder as an adult.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a big non-negotiable, is we got to have some fun.
That leads me to my next and last question for today, because you said it's, the space where we can experience joy, and it's, harder as an adult to create time for that, because sometimes I feel like we think that we play when we are kids, right?
Yes.
And then we are adults, we don't play. And of course, the play for adults looks different than it is for kids, but we still have to have fun, because there's a lot of heaviness in the world. I don't like to say especially now, because I feel like world is always heavy, sometimes
Very
less,
right.
sometimes more. Right now it feels like it's very heavy. So we have to, have conversations like this to just beautiful without getting into heaviness, right? Sometimes it's important to know what's happening, but I think sometimes it's also important to just have beautiful conversation, to have
Yes.
fun, to experience joy. So
Yes.
my last question for you, it is about joy. So it's like a two-part question. So how do you experience joy? That's the first question. And second question, we hear a lot about black joy,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to talk about that.
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Oh, I love it. So, how do I experience joy? I feel like it's always in the small things. So, being in nature brings me joy. Listening to music and dancing in my kitchen brings me joy. It's how I clean the house. We put on music and dance.
Of course.
That's the rule.
If you don't clean like this, I something's wrong with you.
I have a lot of concerns. I love sharing time with my girls, just sitting and talking, whether it's at their place, my place, or somewhere, just sitting and talking and laughing. That brings me joy. I would say black joy is a wonderful question to ask, and I think that it changes. I think for me, it's hearing my black female friends laugh. I mean, just let loose and not feel like they're too loud or they're too much. Just letting it out, and being themselves. Or I I always tell I grew up in a family where teasing is a way of showing love, and so I feel like when I'm with my black female friends, we do that. We're cheeky with each other, or we're very affectionate. So we might smack the person's knee and laugh and poke, and it's a wonderful way of being. And then also for me, it's admiring those like we talked about today, Bell Hooks, Maya Angelou, and for me, looking at Toni Morrison, looking at their legacy, that brings me so much joy. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with Black Joy today. And each day I try to figure that out differently. And how can I experience that? Music is another one. I can talk for hours about music and artists and how that is where I also find Black Joy as well and embrace that.
I love asking the question of joy, but I think black joy is something so special
Yes.
because I talk a lot to my husband about it. Because black people have been through so much. This country has, all over the world, but
Yes.
just talking about United States, has a really, really deep history with, back to like 1600,
Mm-hmm.
with dark history. But to see black people find joy no matter what.
No matter what.
Like so much music and food,
Yes.
fashion came from pain that was turned into joy.
Yes.
And to see that is so beautiful.
Yes.
It's so beautiful. Otisa, thank you so much for coming, for sharing the space with me, for being on the special months that I'm dedicating to
Yes.
women. And I am just so joyful too. Today this conversation brought me so much joy because it was so light yet so deep and so
Yes.
beautiful. So cheers.
Cheers.
There might be water, there might be cocktail.
They don't know.
Nobody will ever know.
They'll never know. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, honey. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and for listening. Joy, word for today and for every day, joy. And to all the women out in the world, you are magnificent creatures. We all are. We are able to do so much. We carrying so much on our shoulders. And I wanted to say to women on the shoulders who we stand that we are so grateful for everything that you've done for us and keep doing for us, to our mothers, to our grandmothers, to all these beautiful, historical leaders that we talk today. Because of them, we are able to do what we're doing today. And also, let's support each other, not just talk about it, but let's really, really support each other, because when one of us wins, we all win. And again, if somebody's getting something and that means that it's not meant for you. So let's not be catty, let's be kind. And because the world is just better when we are all kind. And on this note, thank you so much. I talk to you next time. Bye.